Hello, hello. Happy Thursday. Welcome to the Influential Weekly Live Show. I'm so excited to be hanging with you today, my amazing influencers. Oh my goodness. I know, I'm being a dork. It is the equinox today, and I am feeling super playful today. So I think there's been a big energy shift. Always a good thing. I'm sitting here drinking my Reed's zero sugar extra ginger beer because I like it extra spicy with the ginger. I don't know about you. I don't like ginger ale, but I like ginger beer. Go figure. But obviously it's non-alcoholic. Been dry for a while. It's a good thing. So feeling saucy, but we are going to get into some really, really good stuff today, because it is hurricane season. I live in Florida, and it is definitely hurricane season. But it's really about, as I shared in the show notes for today, really about our hurricane, right? What's happening around each of us right now that is creating that feeling of chaos or of being in the storm, whether it's completely internal, external, or both, since usually what's happening internally is being mirror reflected externally. Give me some love if you're like, oh God, Stacey, I know it is so true and it sucks. So we're going to break down not only why we're experiencing this feeling, but I don't know about you, but I have those moments where I'm drawn to the chaos. In many times in my life, I was actually really addicted to being in the storm. And I would love to hear if you've ever gone through that. You know, that's one of your little sabotage cycles, or as many of us as the high performers know, when we're feeling the chaos and the pressure of being in the storm, it's actually how we find our edge. It's how we're able to push ourselves or stretch ourselves in a way that we're able to hyper focus and really get a ton of shit done, be super crazy productive, but at a cost. And so we're going to talk about all of those cycles, because all of that is part of this hurricane. And I always laugh. And this was something that was a conversation quite often between Jeff and I, that we knew when Hurricane Stacy was happening. Have you had ever been called being in a hurricane, or just feeling like, oh my God, I'm the hurricane right now, or I'm in that hurricane, right? Jeremy, sometimes I oddly find a moment of comfort in the storm, and then the hyper focus kicks in. Exactly, right? So we can be really, whoop. That's funny. Got to see the notes. All right. Got to see the comments on the live. So that's exactly the case, right? Is we know that some of that stretch, some of that pressure is actually going to activate some of those really good qualities. However, our ability to hyper focus in such an extreme all or nothing way is from our stress response, that survival mechanism, AKA the trauma response. And some of you have heard me talk about the difference between the high performance and the high functioning, right? And a lot of us, that's really where it comes from. It's that stress response. Patrick and I talked about it a lot, earlier this month. And that's why I wanted to bring this up, because again, right, it's consistency and discipline month that we're talking about. And when we're jumping in and out of the storm, sometimes completely subconsciously, we don't even realize we're doing it. It's gonna affect our consistency, discipline, follow through, our ability to get the goals that we desire. And we may still get the results that we want. However, being in that chaos, being in the storm, drains so much of our bandwidth trying to contain it in a certain way or navigate through the storm, it's actually very exhausting. So when I would go into that hyper focus mode, it would be at a cost of I wouldn't take a break. I'd forget to eat, forget to drink. You're just so in it. Yeah, you're crazy productive. You found your flow, but it's not your highest level of flow. You activated the focus and flow, but it's activating focus and flow that's actually draining you. Whereas when you are in your highest focus and flow, it's not draining you. It's actually recharging you. And so that's where it's like, oh, we can get sort of addicted to that experience or wanting to jump into that experience. But that's why I said it comes at a cost. So let's put it in the framework of the hurricane, right? We know kind of the basic framework of the hurricane. We've got the eye of the storm. Beautiful, balanced, peaceful. In that center, it's just gorgeous. It's clear, it's sunny, it's beautiful. So I equate that to being very present, very grounded, having inner peace where the storm is around you, but you're not necessarily affected by it, where you're still unconditional, right? Your focus, your flow, what you got going on, how you are managing and mastering yourself, you're impervious to the storm. And you choose not to jump into the chaos. However, you can respond to the chaos. So it's the way that I talk about boundaries, right? If you think about the boundaries and your bubble is the eye of the storm. It's the eye. Nothing is coming past that hurricane storm wall because it can't get through your bubble. Your boundaries are so good, so dialed in, totally anchored. Good morning, Amy. So beautiful. Yep. Managing self is that work in progress. It is, right? Always. I'm still a work in progress. It's always a work in progress. There's no end to the personal development, right? So you're dialed in with your little bubble. You're the eye. Chaos outside doesn't matter. But here's the thing. Inside, same, it's centered, it's grounded, balanced. So the eye, you're reflecting that peace inside and out. Like it's just your little space is zen and everything else is happening around you. And you get to choose what you reach in and deal with, or you choose how you affect or influence the storm around you. Doesn't matter what it is. And that's a very different way of being than us actually stepping out of the eye and placing ourselves inside the storm. And most of us stay in the storm. We don't want to be there consciously. But remember, our baseline is not that inner peace yet. We have to learn how to break through the eye wall to get into the eye of the storm. That center is you stepping into your full ownership and identity of you. But that means breaking through the wall to get there. And think about it. It's just like personal development. As we go through the layers of the onion, right? We start on the outside where it's a little rough, a little broken, a little gray and rainy. The deeper in we go, the closer we get to that root, the closer we get to that wall that separates us from ourselves. And the closer we get to that wall, the more intense the storm becomes, the more intense the chaos feels. And we have a choice to make. do we break through the wall? And that's the work that we do to become the leader, the impactor that we're called to be, the legacy maker, right? All those beautiful words that we have to describe the untapped potential calling us towards the I, the peace, the center, the groundedness of who we are that we're always wanting to connect to. But it requires breaking through that deepest wall. Now, some of you have been in the I, have experienced those moments of that level of peace, clarity, ownership, identity, alignment. There's another word for being in that center, that aligned space, right? That wholeness. All of you is in the same place at the same time. Physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and the actions to support where you're going. It's all together, right? But even when we're there, there's a certain point where we jump back into the storm. But why? Now, if you've been following me for a while, you hear me talk about the sabotage cycles all the time, right? It's the sabotage cycles. Like things are going well, we get what we want, we're in the I, we're feeling amazing. And then we start to sabotage after success. Now, what a lot of us don't always talk about, and this is why I wanted to bring this up today, it's not just sabotaging because we're going through raising our thermostat setting, right? Like we surpassed the upper limit. Oh, shit. I got more of what my enoughness or worthiness says I am allowed to. So let me level it out rather than adjusting the thermostat to match the new level of success. We crave the chaos. We crave the stimulation. I'm gonna explain because the way that I always talk about the amazing, divine alpha leader, we have high sensitivity and high sensation seeking. This is empathy and emotion. We are used to being able to access high levels of that. If we move too far to the action and disconnect from the empathy, we're gonna do the hurricane and pull us back and balance out. Because what is a hurricane designed to do? It's designed to reestablish balance. That's the function. Atmospherically, a hurricane comes in when things get too hot, too wet, the cold comes in, it's out of balance, and a hurricane is designed to integrate, right? It is the great balancer. So things are going well. We're used to this high level of, let me backtrack before I go too far. So we got the high empathy. We've got the high sensation seeking, right? That's the drive. That's the stimulation. That's the experience. Sometimes there is the dark side to that. And remember, we are all equal parts, light and dark. We got the good, we've got the positive, we've got the negative. None of this is bad. I'm not labeling it as good or bad. This is positive, negative. Everything's a balance, right? Yin, yang, light, dark, all the things. Everything's a balance. So when we're focusing so much on the light side that we're not taking into consideration the dark, we have this high intensity, this high emotion, this high drive. We like to play in that wild and crazy sometimes. We like to play in the chaos. We like to play in those dark places of ourselves. But we forget that that's what we like to do sometimes. And again, the dark isn't a bad thing. This is not. It's all about balance. But if we're so focused on that toxic positivity or the light or the growth or the whatever, that we're ignoring certain parts of ourselves, again, the wall, the stuff we have locked away that we're not yet integrating, we'll find a way to meet that need. We want that edge. We want that extra sensation or that extra experience. So we jump into the chaos because what we've forgotten how to do is play with those dark parts of ourselves, play with and integrate those things that when we were kids, it was just all fun. It didn't matter because it was balanced, it was integrated. When we're disconnected from those pieces of ourselves, we're going to find ways to access it. And sometimes it's chasing the crazy. Sometimes that's what we do. And so the reason I bring this up is because I did a week and a half ago, I did a big, deep healing retreat where I sat in stillness with myself long enough to reconnect to those parts of myself that I loved as a kid and often kept me disconnected from other people because they just didn't understand that I liked those parts of myself, those deep places that not everybody likes to go. And it's amazing how much the strength of the chaos and the hurricane softened, how much I was able to center myself even more in the I, in the peace, in the unconditional, in the unapologetic, in that place of self-ownership, because I integrated all of it so much more and recognized that chasing that type of crazy, the chaos, jumping into the storm, whether it was internal, AKA sitting in the suck way longer than I needed to, or jumping into the storm like shiny object, or taking on more than I had the bandwidth to handle, right? Where we create the pressure or we create those situations that elevate us so that we can actually access those pieces of ourselves that we've forgotten how to access because it's behind the wall. So it's important to recognize all of these nuances and all of these layers to who we are being as impactors, as healers, as the people who are shifting the world around you. You know, you're influencing. You're creating that legacy of impact for a reason. And it's because of those parts of yourself. Integrated or not, that's part of that fuel to your purpose. It's those parts of yourself, that untapped potential that you're like, oh my God, I can feel all of this energy, all of this capacity to do and be so much more. Yet it requires that unlocking. It requires breaking through that inner wall to access and to integrate. So, how do we do that? Right? We've got this beautiful, visceral, visual story. We know what that feels like. So, how do we begin making those changes? So, one is giving space and time for you. And I mean, when we're maxed out, that can be a really, really big ask. And it doesn't have to be a lot. This is about sitting in the stillness past the discomfort, right? We love to talk about pushing outside of our comfort zone. Oh, I'm so comfortable with being uncomfortable. Well, yeah, we are willing to do new things, but we're always doing it in a high stimulation, high activity way. Slowing down and sitting still with ourselves quite often is the most uncomfortable thing that we can do. So sitting, and usually it doesn't take long to be uncomfortable. I know, Maybe a minute or two, I'm like, I could be doing all these other things right now. You know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. So it really is sitting in that space. But what do you do with the sitting? Right? What do you do with the stillness? Some of us do right? So it's the morning pages, or it's the brain dump, the unedited, unapologetic, just onto paper of anything that comes up for you, right? The morning pages are great because it's anything and everything. If there's something you need to pull off of it before you throw it away, throw it away. It's only 3 pages of just, and I will tell you, the first few times I did it, because I was so not used to giving myself that level of clarity and insight into me, it was hard to write 3 pages. I was like, oh my God, can I just stop at 1? It was a challenge. It was really hard. Now, for some of you who've been in my ecosystem for a while, if you have my favorite release technique, the write and burn release technique, that's another one where we sit and we give space to be present with, feel, release, and process our hurricane, the internal hurricane, right? Because there's a lot, the negative thoughts, the negative emotions. We see all the symptoms, the not respecting our time, not respecting our bodies, not following through, the distractions, right? All the things that we do. Purging some of that eye wall, the emotion that feeds that eye wall, that negativity, the toxicity, all the shit that we've taken on over a lifetime of having high empathy and intuition, it's in there and it gets stuck. Like, that's the penance of the high empathy people, is we believe that we've got to feel and experience all of that shit and keep it. But I'm here to liberate you right now that that's not your job. You don't have to hold on to all that shit. And I was holding on to a lot of shit. I'll tell you, that week and a half ago when I purged some old ancient stuff, I was holding on to things and none of it was mine. None of it was mine. And the cool thing was, I was willing to call back all of those parts of myself that I gave away trying to fix other people, because that's not our job. That's not our job to fix other people. But when we're children, we don't know any better. If we're in a family of emotionally unavailable, wounded people, us as kids, we just want to fix it. So we give parts of ourselves away trying to fix the other people. And then we wonder why we feel lonely, disconnected, and incomplete. And so part of that process of breaking through your eye wall is not only connecting to the parts that we don't give ourselves permission to play with, to be present with anymore, but it's also that process of calling back all of those elements, those pieces of yourself that you gave away over the years, over the decades. We need to call all of that back. And that's how you create this strong little bubble in the center that is impervious to the storm, where now the storm is happening around you and happening for you, but it is no longer who you are. And you're no longer chasing the crazy and the chaos, looking for the stimulation that we've been addicted to our whole lives because we think that's what we're supposed to be or do, but it's not. So giving yourself that space, that time and space to just be with you. This might be meditation. This might be journaling. It's a little more than just the gratitudes. Gratitudes are great. They're really, really great because you are being present with yourself. But remember, we're still in a creation space when we're trying to think and feel about those gratitudes versus giving free range, free space to how we're feeling and the thoughts that come in and any of it. So journaling, just free writing, which is like morning pages is just completely free writing. Write and burn. And if you want access to that resource, if you do not have it, drop it in the comments. I am happy to have my team, the amazing Katie Woods, will DM you the link for that resource. And sometimes it's just stopping and just sitting in the stillness. Maybe watching the sunrise or the sunset. Just being present with yourself. Think about the crazy of the chaos, being in the storm. The biggest addiction to that is it keeps us from having to sit in the discomfort of being present with self. So my question to you is, are you willing to give yourself a little bit of time and space to just sit and be? Even if it's just starting with 5 minutes. And I promise you, like 90 seconds and you'll be like, oh my God, this is forever. But just sit. I know you might need to write what comes up. Could be anything, good, positive, negative, doesn't matter. Could be ideas. Oh my God, the 5 million things that I need to do today. But at the end of it, you will be way more focused, intentional, and productive, because even those 5 minutes help to sort of reset your being and actually recharge your batteries. And you're going to get way more done in your day than if you're constantly jumping in and fighting the storm. You're not going to lose your edge, because your edge actually comes from being present and finding your flow in an energizing way, not a draining way. But it's uncomfortable to make the pivot because we're so used to the extremes. And that's okay. I know. I am huge in the all or nothing, the crazy extremes. Like, I jumped into all of it. I mean, the highest of the highs of just being in total bliss and alignment, and the lowest of the lows being all the way to the point of like, well, what's the point of being here? It's time to end my life, right? You want to talk about extremes. I've been and sat and marinated in both sides. But it's remembering that you are the center of you. Everything else are just experiences and elements, things that have happened to us, for us, things we've learned from, things we're creating, people we're dealing with, but none of those elements are your identity. You belong in the center of you. So let me hop into the comments. Let's see here. Amy, I think that's where I'm at now, still staring at the wall, but ready to step into the eye. Beautiful, beautiful. I love that, Amy. And just the key too is looking at all the tools, resources, guidance, and support that you need to do that in a constructive way. Because I know historically when I was trying to break through the wall in the past, I only knew destruction. I only knew breaking things apart to rebuild. And that's not necessarily the case. We don't have to burn it all down or completely destroy or fight, push, effort through. We can allow ourselves to step into the eye by dismantling the wall rather than having to tear it down or run and hit ourselves up against it again and again and again, trying to break through it. Instead, the shift is allowing ourselves to tear down the wall. And then we walk through. We step in. Totally different. Oh, you are so welcome. So welcome. Oh, Jeremy, I love the Write and Burn. Highly, highly recommend. Yes, so good. Dimitri, I will happily send you the link. And you are so welcome, Amy. I'm so glad you got value out of the experience today. Please, if you are enjoying that we have brought back the amazing live shows, please invite your friends to this amazing community. But be sure to share the link to the group so they don't miss out on completing the questions to join. So if you need that link, happy to share it with you. Let me know. We'll be sure to do that. Kind of the welcome post again, where it's got the link. Hey, if you want to share, this is how you do it. But again, as always, remember, you are enough. And if there's any ideas that you have as far as things you'd like me to talk about, bring in experts on, have open discussion and dialogue about, share those questions, share those insights, anything that you want. Of course, share your motivation in here. This really is a community for us to lean into, not just be another should on social media. So thank you for being here and being a part of this, holding space for me to share my story, and know that this is in service of you as well. And I look forward to seeing you next week. Have an amazing, amazing day. I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Oh, wait. Oh, we've got some good questions. Hold on. Dimitri, how do you separate urgent and prioritize the critical from the urgent? Ooh, so have you ever done the quadrant stuff where it's like, the urgent and not urgent, and then kind of the opposite one is you can have it as like a revenue generating activity or a non-revenue generating activity. Could be related, if we're talking business, and then you kind of put everything into your different quadrants on the need to do now, like the urgent, or it can wait. And then sometimes it's urgent, but it might not be a revenue generating activity. So that might be a slightly lower on the totem pole. And so I can take a picture of that. Although Jeremy, anybody else that's in here that's listening to this right now, if you have rapid access to the quadrant model, feel free to share it in the group here and then tag Dimitri on it. But I can share mine with you here shortly. So once we wrap up, I go into a couple of interviews, but I can have my team be sure to share it and tag it in here as well. So that's usually the best way that I do it. And that's one of those sitting with yourself, right? We've got like 10,000 things happening in our head. Sometimes it is great to do that visual mapping of what are our priorities and how do they relate to the most important goals that we're working on. Because we can do it personal as well. It can be just like for me, it doesn't always have to be business related or revenue generating. It's just like, okay, how do I prioritize? But when I do this quadrant mapping, I do separate business and personal. So I'll have my business related activities, my personal stuff. Then when I have my lists, I then bring the two lists together and then prioritize accordingly. So I hope that helps. You are so welcome, Amy. I'm so glad you got so much value out of the conversation today. So, all right. With that being said, any other questions? We will definitely pop in and get back to those later, but keep them coming. I'm always, we're here to support you. So have a phenomenal day. Again, you are enough and you are the eye, not the storm. Enjoy your day. Talk to you soon.